In this episode, we turn to a part of incident management that is easy to underestimate until a real event exposes exactly why it matters so much. Creating an incident response plan, IRP, is important, but keeping that plan current, practical, and aligned with the organization's real environment is what makes it dependable when pressure is high and facts are changing quickly. For a brand new learner, this topic is a reminder that security plans are not permanent answers written once and then safely left alone for years. Businesses change, technology changes, people change roles, vendors change services, and threats evolve in ways that can quietly make an old plan unreliable even when it still looks professional on paper. From a certified information security manager, CISM, point of view, maintaining the IRP is not clerical maintenance. It is part of making sure the organization can still act with clarity, coordination, and discipline when a security incident becomes serious enough to demand fast and organized response. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A useful place to begin is with the simple idea that a plan loses value when it no longer matches the environment it is supposed to guide. Many beginners imagine a plan as something stable that should not need much change once it has been approved. But incident response planning does not work that way because the plan is tied to living systems, living business processes, and living teams. If the organization replaces key technologies, changes communication paths, restructures departments, adopts new cloud services, adds remote workers, or relies more heavily on outside providers, the assumptions inside the response plan may no longer hold true. The contact names may be outdated, the escalation path may be wrong, the incident categories may not reflect new exposures, and the recovery assumptions may no longer fit how the business actually operates. A plan can therefore become dangerous in a quiet way because people may trust it simply because it exists. Maintaining the IRP means recognizing that accuracy fades over time unless someone deliberately keeps the document aligned with the real world. That is why ownership matters so much. A plan that belongs to everyone in theory often belongs to no one in practice, and documents without clear ownership tend to become stale because no single person or function feels responsible for checking whether the content is still correct. Good maintenance begins when the organization identifies who is accountable for keeping the IRP current, coordinating reviews, collecting feedback, and moving revisions through approval and communication. This does not mean one person writes every sentence alone, because incident response involves multiple teams and perspectives. It means there is a defined owner who makes sure the work actually happens, the right people are consulted, and changes do not sit unfinished because each group assumed another group would handle them. In many organizations, that ownership sits with the security leadership function or the incident response coordinator, but the exact structure matters less than the clarity of responsibility. A maintained plan is usually the result of visible accountability, not the result of general goodwill or occasional curiosity. Regular review cycles are one of the most reliable ways to keep a response plan useful because they create a discipline that does not depend entirely on memory or on the chance that someone notices a problem at the right moment. A mature organization does not wait for a major incident to discover whether the plan still reflects current reality. Instead, it builds scheduled reviews into the life of the document so that roles, processes, dependencies, and assumptions are checked at defined intervals. The actual frequency depends on the size, complexity, and rate of change in the organization, but the beginner-level lesson is straightforward. If the plan is reviewed only when someone happens to think about it, important updates will likely be missed. Scheduled review does more than catch contact changes or wording problems. It creates an opportunity to ask whether the plan still supports current business priorities, whether new technologies changed response needs, and whether lessons from recent operational events should alter the way the organization prepares for incidents. Routine review is not a sign that the plan is weak. It is a sign that the organization understands change is normal. At the same time, maintenance should not rely only on the calendar. Some of the most important updates are triggered by events rather than by scheduled dates, because security plans can become outdated quickly when the environment shifts in meaningful ways. A merger, major system migration, new regulatory obligation, significant vendor onboarding, leadership change, facility expansion, organizational restructuring, or security incident can all create conditions that require the IRP to be revisited before the next routine review arrives. This event-driven approach is important because some changes affect the plan immediately rather than gradually. If a company adopts a new identity platform, moves key workloads to a different provider, or outsources an important part of operations, the response assumptions inside the older plan may no longer be good enough. Strong maintenance programs therefore pay attention to triggers and not just to dates. They connect incident response planning with change awareness across the business so that the plan evolves when major shifts occur, instead of remaining frozen while the environment around it becomes fundamentally different from the one the document originally described. One of the strongest sources of improvement comes from lessons learned after real incidents or serious near misses. A plan often looks clear until people try to use it under pressure, and that is when gaps, awkward assumptions, unclear authority, or unrealistic timelines begin to show themselves. Maybe the wrong people were notified too late. Maybe evidence handling was inconsistent. Maybe legal and communications teams were involved later than they should have been. Or maybe a vendor dependency became more important than the plan anticipated. These kinds of discoveries are valuable if the organization uses them to improve the IRP instead of simply returning to normal operations and hoping the next event will go more smoothly. A good lessons learned process does not focus only on technical details. It also examines coordination, decision-making, communication flow, escalation timing, and whether the plan supported practical action or slowed it down. Maintenance becomes meaningful when experience shapes the next version of the plan. Without that learning loop, the organization may repeat the same confusion in future incidents even though the earlier event already revealed what needed to be fixed. Exercises are another critical input to plan maintenance because real incidents do not happen on a convenient schedule, and organizations should not wait for actual harm to discover whether important parts of the plan still work. Tabletop exercises, walkthroughs, and other structured practice activities help people test the logic of the IRP in a controlled setting where assumptions can be challenged before an actual crisis forces the issue. For beginners, the key point is that exercises are not meant to prove everyone is perfect. They are meant to reveal what people do not know, where the document is unclear, which decisions create tension, and what information or authority is missing when the scenario becomes more complicated. A plan that seemed complete during drafting may prove hard to use once a realistic incident scenario introduces time pressure, incomplete facts, media attention, or operational trade-offs. Those results should feed directly into maintenance work. When exercises are taken seriously, they help keep the IRP alive as a practical tool rather than a document that is admired during approval and ignored until a stressful moment makes its weaknesses impossible to hide. Communication paths deserve careful maintenance because they are among the first things to fail when a plan goes stale. Incident response depends on people knowing who needs to be informed, how quickly communication should happen, what channels are available, and who has authority to speak internally and externally as the situation develops. Those details change more often than many learners realize. Leadership structures change, teams are reorganized, communication tools are replaced, outside counsel changes, cyber insurance contacts change, and vendor escalation contacts move to different roles or different companies altogether. If these changes are not reflected in the IRP, the organization can lose precious time during an incident trying to locate people, confirm responsibilities, or decide whether an approval path still exists. Maintaining the communication portions of the plan is therefore not just administrative tidying. It protects the organization from confusion at the exact moment when confusion is already naturally high. A current plan makes communication feel intentional and fast. An outdated plan turns communication into guesswork, and guesswork during an incident almost always makes everything harder. The maintenance process should also pay attention to changing technology and architecture because incident response assumptions are often built around how systems are designed, where data resides, how logging works, and which teams control important components. If those foundations change, the plan may need far more than a few minor edits. A company moving from primarily on-premises systems to cloud-heavy operations may need different response coordination, different evidence handling expectations, different vendor engagement paths, and different recovery assumptions. A business that expands remote work may need to rethink device reporting, communication channels, and containment decisions involving distributed users. Even the adoption of a new business application can matter if that application holds sensitive data, depends on outside administrators, or creates new operational dependence. This is why strong plan maintenance is closely connected to technology governance. Incident response planners should not be the last people to learn that the environment changed. They need enough visibility into architectural and operational shifts that the IRP can evolve before a new incident tests old assumptions that no longer match reality. Third-party relationships also need ongoing attention in the response plan because vendors often become central during security incidents whether the business notices it day-to-day or not. A plan written when services were mostly internal may no longer be sufficient once cloud platforms, managed service providers, software vendors, identity providers, or outsourced support teams become critical to operations. If those relationships change, the IRP may need new contact paths, new notification expectations, new responsibilities for coordination, and new assumptions about who controls logs, infrastructure, or recovery actions. It may also need clearer treatment of contractual obligations, evidence requests, or communication rules when a vendor incident affects the organization directly. This is especially important because third-party dependencies are easy to overlook until a problem occurs and responders realize that part of the environment is outside their direct control. Maintaining the IRP means making sure vendor realities are reflected honestly. A plan that pretends the organization can respond alone when major parts of its environment are managed elsewhere is not current, even if the document itself looks polished and complete. Documentation quality is another part of maintenance that matters more than it first appears. An IRP does not become better simply because more edits are added over time. In fact, some plans get worse with age because updates are layered in awkwardly. Older language is never cleaned up, and conflicting instructions remain in place from earlier versions. A well-maintained plan is not only current. It is readable, coherent, and easy to use under stress. That means revision work should include cleanup, removal of outdated content, clearer wording where confusion was found, and enough structure that responders can find what they need quickly. Version control matters as well, because people need to know which copy is current, when the last update occurred, what changed, and whether older versions were properly retired from circulation. If multiple outdated copies remain in shared locations, the organization may find itself using the wrong instructions during an urgent event. Good maintenance, therefore, includes content quality, version discipline, and practical usability. The plan should become more dependable over time, not more cluttered. Stakeholder involvement is essential because incident response affects far more than the security team alone. Legal, privacy, communications, human resources, information technology, operational leaders, vendor managers, and executives may all play roles during significant incidents, and the plan will be stronger when those stakeholders help review whether it still matches reality. A document maintained only by one function may miss important changes in business process, reporting expectations, contractual obligations, or leadership decision paths. Cross-functional review helps catch those blind spots before they cause trouble. It also improves buy-in because people are more likely to understand and trust a plan when they had a chance to confirm that their roles, responsibilities, and constraints were represented correctly. This matters especially in organizations where incident response can quickly expand from a technical matter into a business-wide event. Maintenance is not just about editing text. It is about keeping the shared understanding behind the plan current. When the right stakeholders participate, the IRP stays connected to the way the organization actually works instead of drifting into a security-only perspective that may be too narrow for real incidents. Measurement can also support maintenance if it is used thoughtfully. The goal is not to create vanity reporting around plan updates, but to give leaders some visibility into whether the IRP is being reviewed, exercised, and improved in a disciplined way. For example, The organization might track whether scheduled reviews occurred on time, whether exercise findings were closed, whether contact information was validated, or whether incident lessons resulted in documented revisions. These kinds of measures help show whether maintenance is happening as a real process or only as a vague expectation. They also help reveal where the program is slipping. If exercises repeatedly identify the same unresolved issues, or if review cycles are regularly missed, that tells leadership something important about readiness. For a beginner, the main lesson is that maintenance should be visible enough to manage. A plan cannot be assumed current simply because nobody has complained lately. Reasonable measurement gives the organization a way to see whether upkeep is active, whether improvement is occurring, and whether the plan is being treated as an operational tool rather than a one-time deliverable. A mature organization also understands that maintaining the IRP involves keeping people familiar with it, not just keeping the document updated. A plan that is technically current but largely unknown to the people who must use it is still weak in practice. Staff turnover, role changes, promotions, outsourcing, and business growth can all leave new participants unsure of their responsibilities, even if the written plan is accurate. That is why maintenance should include awareness, orientation, and reinforcement for the people who may be called upon during a response. They need to know where the plan lives, what their role is likely to be, how escalation works, and how to find support when an incident begins. This human side of maintenance is often overlooked because it feels less formal than editing the document itself, but it is just as important. A well-maintained IRP exists in both the document and the people. If only the document is updated while the participants remain unfamiliar, the organization may still struggle under pressure because readiness depends on understanding, not only on written correctness. Common mistakes are worth recognizing because they are the reason many response plans gradually lose value without anyone intending that outcome. Some organizations treat maintenance as a low-priority administrative task and postpone updates until the plan is already badly out of date. Others focus only on names and phone numbers while ignoring deeper issues such as changed technology, new vendors, or unclear decision authority revealed by exercises and incidents. Some update the document but never communicate the changes, which means responders continue acting on old assumptions even though the official version has changed. Another frequent mistake is making the plan longer and more complicated every year without improving its clarity or usability. That kind of growth can create a document that looks mature but becomes harder to use when speed matters most. Strong maintenance avoids these traps by staying focused on reality, readability, learning, and practical readiness. The organization should ask not only whether the plan was updated, but whether the update actually makes the next response more coordinated, more accurate, and more resilient under pressure. As we close, the main lesson is that maintaining and updating your incident response plan is really about protecting the plan from becoming a false source of confidence. A response document should evolve with the organization, learn from experience, reflect meaningful change, and remain usable to the people who depend on it when incidents move faster than anyone would like. Strong maintenance includes clear ownership, scheduled reviews, event-driven updates, exercise findings, incident lessons, stakeholder input, documentation discipline, awareness for participants, and enough visibility that leadership can tell whether readiness is being preserved over time. Weak maintenance leaves the organization with a plan that still exists but no longer fits the environment, the people, or the realities of modern response. For a new CISM learner, this topic is a reminder that planning is not a finished act. It is an ongoing management responsibility. When the IRP is maintained with discipline, it stays relevant, trusted, and ready to support better decisions at the exact moment the organization can least afford confusion.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.